Yes, the vocab book is a grade. It's a completion grade. You have to have 2 words per day of class. So by the end of the semester, that's going to be roughly 40. Yeah, you can go get water. It's going to be roughly 80-ish words that you should have in your book that you should have learned. Like you guys, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't graded. All right, that's the kind of student I was. If the teacher said do this thing, and then they said it's not a grade, I wouldn't do it. I know that about myself, and I assume that of you guys, so it is graded. Make sure you do that. All right, and you will get way behind if you don't know. You are also going to be crazy confused, and class will be harder if you're not staying on top of that. So let's define from our objective again. I'll say our objective in case you didn't get it. The objective today is to introduce the Gospels as literature and understand the theological goals of each author. All right, theological is having to do with our beliefs about God, having to do with our beliefs about God. If I say it's a theological thing, I mean it relates to what I think about God, what I know about God. I think or believe are better than to say no. We can't be certain. All right, we can be sure, but not certain. And that's you know what? I'm gonna control myself and not go down that the difference there. But theological, I will just assume you know going forward. I'm going to assume you know what I mean when I say the theological goals of each author. At least one of you guys today is going to ask me. You're going to see it as one of the questions on the assignment. We'll say, what's the theological goals? You go, what does this mean? I'm going to say, you've got the vocab words in your book, and you have it in your notebook, so you're good to go. I'm not going to answer that question for you. Having to do, yes. It relates to our beliefs about God. The term theology, you guys will get to Christian theology at some point. Theology means the study of God. The study of God. All right. So when we're diving into this, there's a few things we have to know. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at, and we're going to start introducing 3 books called the Synoptic Gospels. Synoptic Gospels. 3 books that tell the same basic story, of Jesus, differing details and chronologies. Differing details and chronologies. All right, chronologies is another word you guys might not know. You guys do watch TV and stuff like that, so you might have heard chronological order, right? That's what this means. Chronologies is the flow of events. I'm going to say actually the order of events. The order of events, chronology. The way time flows. The way time flows in a story. All right. Another way, I'll also ask different chronological orders. All right, chronological is time logic. Do they have the same order of events? If I ask you, do these 2 books have the same chronologies? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's going to be confusing this semester, and I'm trying to point that out to you. All right, I want us to notice that they have different goals and they're achieving them in different ways. So, the Synoptic Gospels are 3 books that tell the same basic story of Jesus. They have different details and chronologies, so different orders of events. The gospel writers do not understand time the way we do. All right, They don't think it's a big deal if they say that you yelled at Mr. Lang for being bald and then got food, or if you got food and then yelled at Mr. Lang for being bald. Right? They would see if one person says one and the other says the other, they would go, well, yeah, they're telling the same thing, they just have different purposes of why they said it, right? The order of the events is not a big deal because they're not looking for the history, they're looking for what the order of events ends up telling you about the situation. Did you yell at Mr. Lang because he was bald and then go get food and that tells you that you were hangry? Or did you go get food and then yell at Mr. Lang and that says you just really hate bald people, right? The order of events on that really lets you figure out which one the author thinks is the case. They might change it up. So this is what the Synoptic Gospels do as well. And we're going to look at some basic assumptions we have to have, and we're going to look at some things about it before we get in there. But the Synoptic Gospels, there are 3 books. All right, here's the 3 books. I'll tell you this, one of the questions on the final exam will mention Synoptic Gospels. And they are these 3, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew, Mark, and Luke. We're going to read as a classroom. Every single student in my class will read the book of Mark because I'm going to read it out loud to you chapter by chapter every single day. I'm going to read 1 chapter a day to you out loud. And you guys will use this as the backbone of your comparative work. Half of you guys are reading the Gospel of Matthew. I love that. I like all of these. But half of you will be doing Matthew. The other half will be doing Luke. I will ask you guys a bunch of questions, and you'll choose which questions to answer. And some of them will require that you guys have a conversation between somebody that read the different one, right? So if you read Matthew, you'll talk with somebody that read Luke, and you'll say, what happened in your story? They're going to be different events, and they're going to be sometimes wildly different, sometimes almost the same. And we're going to want to pay attention to both things as they occur. But Matthew, Mark, and Luke, if you guys, I would suggest and I would prefer that you all read all 3 of these. If you do all of the reading, just pushing yourself a little extra, making your reading time, instead of 10 minutes a night, 20 minutes a night, not only is that rewarding because you're learning better reading, you're reading the Bible, if you do that each night this semester, you'll end up reading about 80% of the New Testament. All right, a really, really good chunk of the Bible, very important chunk of the Bible. And if you guys are saying that you're Christians, I would challenge you to actually read the thing that you're claiming you believe. Right? I don't understand the idea that you would say, I believe this thing. If you don't know what it says, it might have child murder in there. It might say that you can hit kids, right? You don't know that. You don't know if it does or not. It might use the word whore like 85 times in a 1 chapter span. That might happen. It does. It's my favorite thing to read to freshman kids. You guys all remember when I read that, right? Some of this, and I yelled whore like so many times in that class, right? Bible's weird, and if you're going to say you believe it, you should know it, at least in my belief. But we're going to read Matthew, Mark, and Luke this semester. So here's what I want to do. Each of these authors, each author has unique theological goals, and changes the story to fit. Changes story to fit. All right, this is an important detail. A lot of people will think, well, these are just trying to tell us what Jesus said and did. Sort of. Not really, but sort of. They want us to know what Jesus said and did, but they're going to rework the details in particular ways to meet their goal. They have a goal in mind. They want you to think something particular about Jesus and God. Each of these authors does. That's what I mean by theological goals. Each author wants a particular belief about God and Jesus from the reader. So they're going to change details in order to make that happen for you. All right, we're going to try to pay attention to that. I'm going to try to teach you guys how to pay attention to that each time as we go through the semester. So I want to give you what they're trying to do, and hopefully you can notice them as we get through them. So we're going to start with Mark. call this, all right, here's Mark's thing, Messianic secret. Messianic secret. Leaves reader who the Messiah is. All right, this is called the Messianic secret. The author wants you to end up going, who actually is the Messiah? Who is Jesus? You should have an implicit understanding through them that it's Jesus, that Jesus is the Messiah, but he doesn't really reveal this a ton. He says it about twice in the Gospels. The others will say, characters will come up and go, you are this, but in Mark, it's unique where people ask him, they say, are you this, and he just doesn't really answer all the time. We're left with this question of what is really happening, who really was that? Right? Who really is Jesus? So a really neat thing when you kind of notice this mystery happening in Mark. And he's leaving you to wonder. So we're going to have this. We're going to keep on going. I'm going to keep going fast today. Matthew is our next one. All right. I'm just going to put M-A-T-T period. So Matt. Jesus expands God's kingdom to all, and Jesus is the new Moses. Jesus, the new Moses. All right. Jesus expands God's kingdom to all people. Remember, as we talked about a couple classes ago, the Essenes, or the Jewish zealots. Right, and they were even mentioned. We're starting to see the Jewish zealot idea pop up in today's book, that Barabbas seems to be one of those. They're going to be violent. That Matthew is going to say, no, all people get part of God's kingdom. He wants us to see this over and over. We're going to see that the law expands to fit for all people, that Jesus does things to get all people. We're also going to see, if you guys don't remember from Old Testament class, maybe you should take it again, Jesus is the new Moses. Moses is a big deal in the Old Testament. These birth story you're reading today, and I would love, especially if you know that you're reading Matthew, you should be writing this down, that the birth story of Jesus in Matthew is intentionally written to read just like Moses' story in Exodus. Right? The birth story of Matthew and Moses' story in the Exodus match up together very, very closely. And it's on purpose. It's intentional. It's meant to do that because it's meant to make you say, this is the new Moses. Jesus is that guy. The story hits with the Sermon on the Mount in chapters 5, 6, and 7, as we have started writing already, where Jesus is giving the law, just like Moses gave the law on Mount Sinai. Jesus gives the law on the Mount. And he matches up with the Ten Commandments. So that's an incredible thing that happens there. So we're going to go to Luke, and then I'm going to go to a few assumptions we're going to have together, and we're going to go into work time, and I'll explain what we're doing in that moment. All right, so here's Luke. Jesus, the new Adam, brings life from death, brings life from death. And we're going to see emphasizes Jewish prophets, and Jesus's fulfillment. All right, Jesus is the new Adam. So where Matthew wants us to think of Jesus as the new Moses, Luke looks at Jesus as the new Adam. They have two chronologies that actually, if you look at the genealogies, there's a long list of names in both of them. You can skip those if you're reading today. I'm not going to ask you to do those. They contradict each other. And they're okay with that. They don't care, right, that they have different family members because they're trying to get to different things. Luke goes all the way back to Adam and says, Jesus is undoing those mistakes. All the mistakes and death that was brought in from Adam, Jesus undoes them. Jesus solves it. But he also pushes on that Jesus is going to bring life from death. That's what becoming the new Adam means. We're going to see that Luke also loves to quote the Old Testament prophets. He's not, the author of Luke was not a Jew, we don't believe. We believe he's a Greek. And he actually even says, I'm going to tell you the orderly and true story. Which straight away is saying, what does that mean? If he's telling the orderly story, what does that mean about all the other stories? They're not right. Right? So he's saying, I'm telling you the accurate one. Which is kind of a crazy thing that he jumps from the beginning of Luke and says the other ones aren't as accurate as mine. Because he's trying to emphasize the Jewish fulfillment. Right? So it shows us, that's part of how we know these guys are doing literary works, and they're changing things, not willy-nilly, but for very specific goals in mind. Are you raising your hand? Jewish, emphasizes Jewish prophets and Jesus' fulfillment. What, you can't... That's shocking. That is tiny writing. That's Diana-sized writing. Fuck your tea, Diana. All right, so... You say gross? What do you mean gross? Just it wasn't cash money of me? Was that cash money? Yeah, they do. Yeah, the kids, the youths. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. Last couple of things. I think we got that down. I got the last couple of things here. Then we got some work time. All right. We need to have a few big assumptions. The Bible can only do. All right, I need you guys to all understand this. The Bible can only do what it seeks to do. What it seeks to do. What it seeks to do. What it seeks to do.
It doesn't make sense. They'll only do what it seeks to do.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, did you say yes? It doesn't make sense. They'll only do what it seeks to do.
Alright, here's the deal. A lot of people think the Bible can just answer any of life's questions. Did I still miss all this? What it tries to do. How about that?
This is the first.
Alright.
This is the first part.
The Bible can only. Oh. I didn't know what you meant. Oops. Guys. The Bible and that. Alright, the Bible can only do what it tries to do. That is embarrassing. I didn't understand what you meant, and I kept reading it, and I thought the words were there. All right, the Bible can only do what it tries to do. It cannot do. There's a few things that it can't do. For instance, it can't tell you if you should date that boy or girl. I can tell you if you should, and the answer is no, you shouldn't. Whatever boy or girl you're thinking about dating, no, you shouldn't date them. Your children, don't date people. And that person's a dingus. All right, I'll just tell you that. They're dumb. So, yeah, they're a dingus bingus. So, the Bible can only do what it tries to do. It cannot tell you how to fix a car. If you went to a mechanic and you said, can you fix my car? And they said, let me go grab my Bible. It's going to tell me. Ask it. You go, this guy's a maniac, and I'm not asking him to do it, right? It can't do that. It's just not able to. But it can tell you about Jesus. It can tell you about how to be ethical in the way Jesus wants you to be ethical. Because that's what it wants to do. It can't tell you history or science. Boys, reel it in just for a second. It can't tell you history or science. It is not a history book in the way we understand as modern people history. It can't tell you science. It's not a science book. It doesn't want to do that. So it's not going to do that. All right, here's some big assumptions. Guys, I need you to focus in for just a second. Big assumptions. Big assumptions. We have to all agree on this, and we're going to have a rough semester together. If you don't agree on these simple things, then you are going to have a real bad semester with me, and I'm going to have a bad semester with you. I probably will anyways, but that's more because of personalities than it is anything else. All right, our first big assumption is the Bible is written by particular people with differing personalities. If you try to get through the semester thinking God wrote the Bible and it's one general voice that works together perfectly the whole time, we'll have a bad time together. All right? We have to assume the Bible is written by particular people with different personalities. It's what we call multivocality. All right? Multivocality. Here's another good word for you to know. Many opinions and voices. Many opinions and voices. Multivocal. We believe as a school, I can confidently say, the Bible is the Word of God. But it's not written by God. It's not His words written down. It's the Word of God, and it's inspired by God. Absolutely. It is inspired by God, but it's written by humans. It's written by humans. Right? It is written by humans. Jesus is God and man. The Bible is inspired by God, but written by man. It is going to have weird personality traits and characteristics. And we have to be aware of those. If we think that there's only one voice happening, that there's nothing to discover, we're going to have a bad time because it's not going to make sense. The next is Bible is written in particular time and place. Time and place. All right. The Bible is written in a very particular time and place. If you don't know the time and place, you're not going to be able to know what the Bible's saying, because it's only trying to do something in its time. It's only trying to do something with the personality and experience of those writers. And they are locked in specific physical locations and chronological time locations. So we have to be aware of that. Now, it doesn't mean that it can't speak to us. It absolutely speaks to our daily lives. I believe that. But it still is written in a particular time and place. That's why I'm going to teach you the background of what's happening. Right? We're going to look at the background. That's why we're reading this book this semester that tells us of fictional treatment of it, but tells us so much of the background, that there's violence and there's Roman oppression and things like that. All right? The Bible is written to particular people. I've already brought this up. All right, the Bible is written to particular people. I like to say the Bible is written for us, but not to us. Is another way to say this. Written for us, but not to us. The Bible is written to particular people. These New Testament books that we're going to read, Mark, Matthew, Luke, are written to Greek-speaking Jews, for the most part. Some of them were Hebrew-speaking or Aramaic-speaking, but it's not written to us. It's first-century Jews. None of you guys, to the best of my knowledge, are first-century Jews. You guys are 2,000 years late to the party, if that's what you're trying to be, right? But you're not them. So we have to try to think like them as much as possible this semester to best understand what is happening in the text. All right, that's a little longer than I meant to be. That's okay. Reading time took a little longer on our reading time today. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a series of questions now. I'm going to hand you some sheets. Actually, if somebody could pass these out. Somebody could pass these out. I do want them back. You're going to get, and then I need somebody to pass out something else. I want these back. All right, pass those out to everybody. Everybody needs one. Then what I'll need is you're going to see this. Guys, this is your actual assignment here. You can skip the outline. You can put a big X across the outline today. Going forward, we'll do that because I'll be faster on my lecture. You just need to go through that list of questions. You're going to read the first 2 chapters of your gospel. All right, chapters 1 and 2 of Luke or chapters 1 and 2 of Matthew. And you're going to answer as many questions as you can up to 7. Not all of you can get through all 7. We don't have time for that. All right, but I want you to feel the crunch. The goal of doing this, the goal is 7. And part of why I'm doing it like this is because going forward, I'll give you reading homework. And my work will assume that you did the reading homework. All right, I will assume that you read 2 chapters of the Bible. If you didn't, you're going to have a tough time similar to today. So I'm trying to get you to feel that crunch. I'm going to assume, the work assumes you did the reading. I assume you didn't because I've met you as students. All right, but you need to do the reading. So you can work in pairs on this. You'll choose any of the 7 questions. All right, you don't have to choose the same order or the same questions. You'll see a list of questions. There's 16 of them. Choose 7 that you like. Read chapters 1 and 2 and answer them to the best of your ability. It's opinion-based. Most people reading Luke have only been able to get through about 4 or 5 questions. That's okay. I'm grading participation and effort. I'm not grading perfection. All right, so do your best. You have 30 minutes on this, and it's due in 30 minutes. Due in 30 minutes. Let's get going.